All right, welcome back, everyone. So hopefully you had thrilling discussions about economic order quantity in your breakout groups. So what we'll do is I'll restate the question and just talk about putting in context, and then we'll see what you guys came up with. So now's the time, if you haven't already, put in some chat and answer to our questions. The impact of the EOQ, how will this change the expected?
So you're speaking again.
Okay, sorry, I don't know where we lost you, but um, so in real life, there's three levels of packaging. Sometimes there's more, but there's generally three. There's the eaches. This is the thing that you will buy that the consumer will take. And then there's the intra-pack, and this is where there are a series of them in the larger case or ordering pack. So for cups, for example, I might have to order a box of 1,000 cups, and inside that box are sleeves known as interpacks of about 100 cups. You see this in anything when you go to the grocery store, or the store. Next time you go, look for this. A lot of times you'll see the eaches displayed, but then you'll see a case, which is an interpack. And depending on the store, if it's one of the mass sales ones, like a Costco or something, either way up, down, or low, you might see a pallet or a series of cases. So you have this series of sizes, and this impacts the EOQ. And so you can think about how big should my pack size be, because that's something that package designers and supply chain designers try to figure out. What is the optimal size, and that you try to minimize the amount of damage, but also it has impacts on inventory, and that's what we wanted to ask. So Ahmad, who came up with an answer?
Yeah,
What are they saying for the first question?
got the
Will it impact the EOQ?
We got the first feedback from room 5, the ramen rooms. The answer for will it impact EOQ? Yes, it will impact the EOQ.
All right.
And if the pack order size by chance match the EOQ, then there will be no impact. But in most cases, it will be negative impact. If you order more, you actually need to carry more or less, or order less. And if you decide to order less because of pack size, it will reduce our inventory, but we will have to order more frequently. And that's as they say, it's a trade-off between holding cost, holding inventory, and ordering more frequently.
Right, because essentially at the end of the day, what it's making you do is order a little bit more, because you're not going to order less. So the issue is, if let's say my EOQ comes out to be 98, right, but I only come in packages of 100, that's not so bad. But if my EOQ is 51, right, and then you can have a big multiplier there. And so in real life, your EOQ will never, ever be the pack size or the order size. It just will never happen. So hopefully everyone agrees that it will impact the EOQ, and it's generally negative. It'll force you to carry extra inventory. Now the question is, how much? So the question is, what is the trade-off, and how much extra inventory will it cause you to have? Do we have slides? So which slide are we on?
Next one you want?
Is that the impact of pack size?
Yeah.
So can you go to this one?
Yeah.
Are we on that?
Yep.
So we actually have a project going on with one of our PhD students, as well as with a company, And we actually quantified it, and it's actually an interesting derivation. I have it up there, the end result. But you can think of it as what if I could order in eaches, my cycle stock or the amount of inventory on hand would be on average would be Q over 2, right? How much I order over 2 because it's got that sawtooth. All we're going to do is multiply that by the pack size minus the greatest common divisor. So if you want to what the demand is and what the pack size is, right? That's going to be a multiple. So if it's a 2 or 20, that's the number, the largest number that divides into both, and divide that by Q. This essentially gives you a penalty or the additional amount that you'll need to have, that you will have on hand if you're forced to have case size of whatever, a PS in this case, a pack size. So it has a impact of how much. And you can think of it, and if you look at this, the chart that I have up there, what you're doing is essentially advanced buying. And so you're going to eventually, you see the first cycle, you have a little bit, then you have a little bit more. In the third cycle, you have a lot more, so you don't have to order anything for that fourth cycle. That's essentially what happens. It's like a waterfall. Now, an interesting thing, if you look at the intra-pack size, because that's another parameter that you have. So, for example, for the one project we're looking at, is not just how much you order at one time, it's what are the intra-packs. Are the intra-packs in packs of 50 or 100? And that has an impact on the, it has an impact on how much is stored, not what the inventory level is. Because the other issue is, if I have this box of 1,000 cups, let's say, typically what people will do is put it there, and they'll keep it there as they take cups out. So it's always going to take that footprint of that big box until the last cup is gone. If you break it down into intra-packs, you can actually save space. It won't reduce your inventory, but your footprint in your back room changes. So what the interesting result out of this project, we discovered that the case size that you order with affects your inventory. The intra-pack size affects your footprint. And so these are interesting things that we did to help them determine how they should change their different packaging and whether to change or not, because it has different ramifications. So this is just a way for you to think about the EOQ and how that fits together.
Yeah, great.
Any other comments from people?
Actually, the other rooms, Vicky's room, Roberto's room, and the others, actually, they all agree the same idea, and that's good. That's good that everybody understand the EOQ model, the trade-off between holding cost and the ordering cost. And regarding the last question, they say that having the set batch size reduce our options of ordering size and reduce the flexibility.
Yeah, so the retailer, if you own the store and you're receiving the stuff, again, you want them as small as possible, unless that increase your handling cost. So you could almost have a diseconomy there if things are broken down, because if there's a fixed cost for you to move things in from the truck, let's say, into the back room, it's easier to bring one big box than to take 100 cups individually. So you have to look at that total cost equation to see what, because the handling cost might change now for a box versus an individual unit.
A comment from Lisa's group, Breakout Room 2, that if it is a very expensive item, order quantity should be less than EOQ. What do you think?
No, EOQ, it will never be less than EOQ. I mean, it depends what you're doing. If you want to minimize total costs, right, for those 4 cost elements that we talked about, and the only ones that matter, order and holding cost, the EOQ is the solution for lowest cost. I don't care what your value is, because as your value goes up, what's it doing? It's increasing that variable cost. So what's going to happen as you could do this in a spreadsheet, right? And just have your V, your cost, get higher. What'll happen to your Q? You're going to order more frequently, smaller quantity, because it costs you more to keep it there. But EOQ is EOQ. Yeah, it is the optimal quantity.
Great. And one question that they're asking you to explain this equation, if you want to go one more time to that.
No, but I'll send something out because this is, I should have changed the notation. So essentially all you're doing is adding in a certain amount, and what it's really doing is adding in the incremental difference between the package size, right, and then the amount that your demand for that period, the queue. And so as that gets farther apart, you have to order in more. The picture kind of describes it a little better. You can see what you're really doing. And the reason why it's the greatest common divisor is you look at the number of cycles it takes to clear out, build up enough so you don't have to order on a successive cycle. And so I can send something out. I'll wait for Lita's paper to get published for the derivation. But it was a fun derivation. You can actually figure it out just by doing some examples. And that's why we actually found out that it's a sum of a series. And so it was actually pretty fun. But if you're doing that stuff, you're doing great. You can figure this stuff out. Okay.
Great.
Do you want to talk about the midterm?
One last comment before going to that one. What's the best way to estimate the influence of increasing and decreasing working capital? What do you mean exactly? I don't know.
So that's something that we cover actually better in SC2x when we get into finance. When we talk about working capital, because inventory is part of your working capital. And so that's why when I was talking about the holding cost, where that comes from, that really is a reflection of the company's appetite for risk for their working capital. So we cover that in a later course, how that ties into other investments and how you can tie in, for example, some other, how you go into the larger picture. So I defer the answer to that question to a later course.
Okay, great. Just let me talk a little bit about the midterm. So tomorrow, Wednesday, we are releasing the midterm. You have a period of 1 week until 1st of March. But once you start the exam, it's time exam. Once you start, you only have 4 hours to do the exam. And it's not a proctor, it's a regular exam. It's only time exam. And the material that we are going to cover is all the weeks from 1 to 4, including 4. And regarding the optional lesson, the regression part that you asked me that that fund is covered or not. So we assume that you should know the regression, but we are not going to ask about the very detail of the regression. And so, but we assume that you know the regression and how to regress. And regarding the number of questions, so you will get 3 questions. And each question have several parts. So that's all about midterm, and you will get a newsletter, course update for midterms very soon. And I got a question regarding, Chris, some of the students are enrolled in SC1, and that's the first course for them in MicroMaster pipeline. So they're asking which course should be the next for them, SC0 or SC2? Which one we recommend them to take?
I think it depends. I think 0 is probably the better one. And the reason for that is because in 2, we're going to go straight into mixed integer linear programming. And if you've seen it before, you'll be fine, but we teach it in 0. So we will assume that you know mixed integer linear program. So correct me if I'm wrong, 0 starts again on what date?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that I also suggest you to take 0 because it's better to cover the material before you take those in C2. And if you are worried about the time that you finish the all 5 courses, it doesn't matter. In both cases, you will finish all 5 courses at the same time, exactly at the same time. I just checked it for the Hangout. So don't worry about that. My recommendation is to take C0. That's much better.
Yeah, but something about the midterm. So we're giving you 4 hours. It should not take you 4 hours.
No.
Okay, we're giving you over 2 times what we think you should do just to have
this
that.
Time
so
is more than twice. So
you should do fine.
Yeah. So that's all about midterm and inventory management.
Okay, so this was we'll talk more about inventory, I think, in the next Hangout, which is after the midterm, but this is like the basics of it. And so the big takeaways are EOQ is just a trade-off between fixed and variable costs. That's all it is, and we'll see it in a bunch of other areas. and 2, that total cost equation. So think about the total cost equation because we'll use that consistently. And then always think about the assumptions. For EOQ, I'm assuming deterministic demand, and that's the primary assumption. We'll loosen that up and change some of that, and it will change the situation. So when you're in practice, even though demand is never truly deterministic, sometimes it's close enough, and that's why EOQ is okay. And so this is like a building block for the stuff we'll do for the rest of the course.
Yep.
Okay?
Thank you so much.
Great.
Have a nice day.
Bye, everyone.